आज हमारे साथ है सुरभि यादव, who better to ask to facilitate this. Surabhi Yadav builds communities of hope, ideas, and culture that create a new normal for rural women. She's the founder and CEO of two gender equality and rural development initiatives in India. She runs a non-profit named Sajhe Sapne, where 18 to 23 years old rural women from marginalized caste groups learn to make big, bold bets. These bets include becoming STEM and management professionals like coders, project associates, tech entrepreneurs, math teachers, etc. These bets also include delaying marriages by 2 3 years at least, earning more than male members in the family, to be the first ones in their communities to have a notion of a career instead of livelihood. This community of hope currently has 100 plus members from 60 plus villages who are building grassroots leadership movements. She's also the creator of the widely acclaimed archive Project Basanti, Women at Leisure. The project has documented 800 plus videos and photos of women and girls at leisure, especially from semi urban and rural areas. The project gives vivid visuals of what feminist liberation can look like, introducing joyful and practical ways to create such moments. It has introduced a new language and gaze towards leisure and time as feminist issues, inspiring new thought leadership in academia, art, mainstream media, etc. तो हाल ही में साजिद अपने और सुरभि की टीम ने एक कमाल का कैंपेन किया था फंड रेजिंग के ऊपर एंड आई पर्सनली थॉट हु बेस्ट बेटर कुड वी हैव rather than Surabhi to facilitate this, especially when everyone is talking about making a presence on LinkedIn, but numbers or analytics के अलावा भी how do we bring out that story, that human side? So that's why we have Surabhi today.
So yeah, the session as EquiLead invited me for was for creating personal brand and the importance of a personal brand and storytelling on LinkedIn. But I think I wanted to take a step ahead or like a bigger picture of that. I think it's essentially about building things in public. And that public can be LinkedIn, that public can be your offices, that public can be Instagram, Twitter, or your home, right? Or it could be literally a roadside, like that could be the public. But how do you build things in public? I'm going to be talking about that today. And by building things in public, I mean, you could be building career, you could be building a company, you could be building your own self, your life, or a project. But yeah, what does it take to build things in public? That's what I'm going to be talking about. Just setting some expectations from this session. I do want to tell what I cannot offer and what you should not expect from this session. I do not have any expertise on branding. That's not what you're going to get. I'm not an expert. I'm not a professional marketing professional at all. So you're not going to get that. You're not going to get any strategy for virality, like what creates viral content, what are the tools or hacks for hacking the algorithm on LinkedIn or any social media platform. You're also not going to get the big picture understanding of social media marketing, like what are the different formats and what is the way to think about social media marketing. And fifth, you're not going to get any insights related to influencer business, or like what does it take to become an influencer? What are the income sources for becoming an influencer and everything? And I'm not being like very humble or modest here. Like I'm actually, these are facts. And these are facts because I have no viral content on my social media. I have whatever, like a small set of followers, like 13,000 on LinkedIn and I think 30 on Instagram. So I don't have these and I haven't used them ever to create whatever I create. But what I do have is that what I was saying, that now when I go to conferences and events in my own sector, in nonprofit sector, I don't have to initiate a lot of conversations because people come and initiate conversations. And part of it is just them saying, oh, we read this about your work and we read this thing that you wrote and we have this thought about it, right? So there is a building credibility that has happened. And that's what I'm going to share. So it's going to be a very individual centric lessons from my experience and not the big picture of how marketing and branding and publicity works. um, I what I have learned from just building communities of hope and building credibility online. What I have built in public, the three big things that I do talk a lot about, no matter which platform you see me on, in person, offline, online. I have been building Saje Sapne, a nonprofit that works with young rural women and launching their careers after 12th standard since last 4 years. So you would see me a lot of you will see me talking a lot about rural women, how different caste identity, class identity, gender identity play out when it comes to economic and agency growth. So gender, rural development, that's what I talk a lot about. I also have another initiative called Project Basanti, Women at Leisure. And this is a rich repository of visuals of women and girls taking time for themselves. And so this is on, you'd see me talking about this in different platforms as well. And then I do love making things. I love creating things. So anything that comes in the process of that creation, I talk about that. So yeah, so I'm going to be sharing lessons from what I have learned from this communities. For today's session, I'll be primarily covering 4 topics in the talk, and then of course, open for question answers to cover more things. First and foremost is that why should one or shouldn't one share things in public? मतलब करना ही क्यों है ये? और अगर नहीं करना है तो वो भी क्यों? Right? Like, so just questioning the basic premise कि करने की भी जरूरत है या नहीं है, और जो भी है तो क्यों? Right? Second, if you're convinced that you want to do it, the question is, what should I share? Right? Like, क्या share करूँ दुनिया से? And then third is how to make my creations more shareable. कि मुझे पता है ये share करना है, but उसको shareable कैसे बनाऊं? And the last is that नहीं हो रहा है, हो ही नहीं रहा है, just cannot do it. Then what you should do, and then how should you do it, right? So I'd be covering these 4 questions, again, reminding that I'll be covering it from my perspective, what I have learned in each of these, right? For each of these sections, I'm going to share one mental model, or as in my nonprofit in Saji Sapne, we call it mantra. तो हर एक section में एक मंत्र होगा, and कुछ examples होंगे. I'm going to cover some examples proving or disproving that mantra. So let's get started. First is, why should you think about sharing things in public or building things in public? Or why shouldn't you, right? क्यों करें, क्यों ना करें? To me, this whole idea of branding or showing up on LinkedIn or any public space is essentially the concept of, is essentially about visibility. Do you want to be seen? Do you want to be seen in the way you think you want to be seen? Do you have an active choice that you're making that you want to be seen? And I think we do have a very complex relationship with visibility, especially a lot of women have a lot of complex relationship with visibility. But just the fact khullam khulla, like this word has an ick factor to it. Like we don't want to be associated with it, right? And there is, of course, there is a lot of conditioning that goes into it. Why it's easier to stay invisible? Why is it easier to shrink yourself down and just stay in a corner? So we do have a complex relationship with it. I do want to let everyone know that I am not going to be talking about the general usefulness of visibility. I think everyone knows that. I am going to dig a little deeper that what happens inside us when we're dealing with this, right? So just going a bit deeper, why do we choose, invisibility? Why would one say that अच्छा मुझे नहीं बाहर जाना है? It could be simply on, I don't want to go to the market. I don't want to be seen in the market. That's the public space. I don't want to be seen there, right? I don't want to be seen in a big meeting in my office. I'd rather sit in a corner and just take notes. I don't want to speak up in an event that I'm participating. I don't want to raise hand and say, I have a question. I don't want to be seen. And that's a choice that a lot of us make, right? I don't want to post anything on LinkedIn about my work. That's a choice that you're making about invisibility. So what might be potential reasons? The inner reality could be many. I've just stated some examples. Nazar lag jayegi, why do you have to show off your things to others? Others like evil eye, or that you don't want to be inviting more people feeling jealous of you or commenting on you, right? Or you don't think that it's a good thing to show off, right? Like, और ये हम ना इंडिया में तो ये बहुत बोलते हैं कि दिखावा अच्छी चीज नहीं है, दान किया है तो चुपचाप करो, दूसरों को दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है, right? You could be fearing judgments and rejections. Like, who does she think she is? बड़ी आई समझाने हमको, like, so that can happen, that your intellect and your wisdom and the things that you bring on the table are discarded just by the fact that, you're being judged harshly. There's a big factor of safety for a lot of women. And again, for a lot of people, but in general for women, in public spaces, that what if something bad happens to me? What if someone says something bad about me? What if someone unsolicitedly come towards me and I don't like that? And that happens, like LinkedIn is as public space as a marketplace, right? Like you do get unsolicited messages on LinkedIn. You do get judged on LinkedIn. You do get rejected on LinkedIn. And it could be simply that you don't enjoy it. You don't want to be seen. That's not something that's your comfort zone. That's not something that you like it. So you're out of it, right? Outer reality could be that you just don't have the skills. You want to, but you can't because you don't have the tools and the skills. आता ही नहीं है कि कैसे दिखाएं किसी को जो हमारे अंदर है, right? It could be that आपको जरूरत महसूस नहीं हुई, that I never felt the need to put myself out there, right? And the last, which is essentially is not a choice, is basically helplessness. That the system is such that I have no option but to stay invisible, like no option. So I would nudge everyone who in general struggle to put themselves out there. It could be in your family. It could be in front of anyone, basically, beyond your privacy. If you do struggle putting yourself out there, I think it might be a worthy reflection to think about what is it that your choice is trying to protect you from. वो कहना क्या चाह रही है ना आपसे, कुछ चीज से आपको बचा रही है. So what is that? I think the more we dig deeper and get to know that, we're going to be directing our energy in solving the right thing, right? So for me, what I understand of meaningful visibility, right? Especially in social sector, I think in social sector, we do think of marketing as a bad word because marketing has been long been associated with corporations that deceive customers. So you don't want to be overselling and then completely deceiving your customers and under delivering, right? So in social sector, we believe do good work. You're not here for the fame. You're not here for the wahwai. So might as well just put your head down, do the good work, and that should be enough. And I think I fundamentally believe that there is a very strong difference between showing off and showing up. Not every showing up is showing off. And in the social sector, and I'm talking about social sector more because that's the sector I have always worked in, is if it not in, like, this sector knows the power of showing up. And this sector also knows what happens, what gets lost when you don't show up. Because when you don't show up, things don't move. When you don't show up, causes don't move. When you don't show up, allies don't get built, allyships don't get built, resources don't move. And when you don't show up, you give permission to everyone else to not show up. Think of any protest. If you don't show up in that protest, you're giving permission to everyone else that it's okay to not go to that protest. Voting, right? If you are giving permission, every single action is giving permission of what is allowed in that space. So if you're choosing that I just don't want to show up anything on LinkedIn, I don't want to talk about my work at all on LinkedIn. And if you're a senior female leader in a company, you're giving permission to every other woman or every other junior or peers that don't show up. And it's okay. But when you do show up, you're giving permission to everyone else that, hey, I get to tell my story and you get to tell yours. And that's important, right? So to me, if you can think and reframe in terms of the power of showing up, all of a sudden, there's a lot bigger purpose than just your ego to do that, right? To build in public. So yeah, like you give permission to others when you show up. You mobilize allies and resources. You advocate for things that matter. And you're not out of sight, so hopefully you won't be out of mind. And I especially mean this in workplaces. If you're constantly hidden in your workplace and you don't advocate for your work, for the things that matter to you, the next opportunity that comes along, your name is not going to pop up in the head, because brain is very, like, periphery vision is very low for brain, right? Like the memory is low. Recency biases are very common. You get to expand the radius of your world. When you put yourself out there, you invite others to show up as well, right? And I think lastly, I do feel like diverse voices make communities stronger. So Surabhi can say the same story and Aparna can say the same story, but both of us would have a different impact on our own respective communities. Like my impact on Aparna's community is not going to be the same as her impact is going to be on her community. So even if it's repeated stories, we need to step up and show up and say those stories, because our voices matter a lot in the communities that we come from. And I think that democratizing uh, of visibility is very powerful. So I do think that I genuinely believe in this, that visibility is a strategic power and visibility is collective power, right? When 10 people talk about, I mean, me too, just think of that. If people didn't show up to talk about their innermost painful experiences in public, we wouldn't have the collective power of putting a finger on saying this is a horrible, horrible trend in our society, right? So to me, building in public or visibility in public is about showing up. And then you get to decide what is it that you want to show up for and how you want to show up for. But it should be your choice. It should not be a compulsion. And so this is the mental model one for the session, is that your visibility has to be your choice and not a compulsion. What I mean by that is, if you imagine LinkedIn as a table, right? First question is, do you have a seat on that table? Maybe you do because you made a profile. It's so easy to get a seat on that table, right? Two, do you have a say on that table? Is that your choice? आप अभी बोल नहीं रहे हो, which is fine. You're not sharing any story. You're not sharing anything about your work. You're not sharing your thoughts. Is it a choice or is it a compulsion? And the way to test, जिस दिन जरूरत पड़ेगी उस दिन बोल पाओगे क्या? अभी नहीं बोल रहे हो, that's okay. The day you would be needed to speak up, the day you would be needed to make a case for yourself, do you have enough practice that you? Because if on that day you're unable to do it, then right now you're in a state of helplessness. Otherwise, you're saying, if you are telling me that, Surabhi, I don't care about putting myself out there in general, but the day I need it, I can do it. And I have the practice and I have the skills. I have worked on it. You don't have to know how I have worked on it, but I have worked on it. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to put yourself out there everywhere all the time. But it has to be an informed choice. And so I would encourage not only mid-career professionals for whom this session was designed, but also young professionals. अगर आप क्लास में हाथ नहीं उठा रहे हो, it's your choice कि मुझे नहीं verbally express करना, that's not my style. You could say that. And my only question is, जिस दिन अपनी बात रखने का मन करेगा, उस दिन वो मौका ले पाओगे या नहीं? Do you have enough practice to make a case for yourself and for others? To advocate for something you truly care about? Do you have the practice to lead conversations and not just always be a silent observer or participant in a conversation, right? Do you have practice to mobilize resources, to collectivize allies? And do you have the practice to show up the way you want when needed? And again, when I'm saying public, I'm meaning right from home, workplaces, public at large, and of course, social media, right? One of the examples that for me, I have always been visible since I've been building anything. I mostly build in public. For me, it was a need. Like I had no other option, but I had to do it, right? Because I don't come from a very, very economically rich family and connections. So anything that I wanted to go out in the world, if I had to expand the radius of my world, I had to reach out to people. There was no other way. So I remember when I started Sajhe, and Sajhe was just a fledgling idea in my mind. I had posted this on LinkedIn and on a very big Google group with 4,000 people in it, and saying that I'm hosting a startup NGO Dikhao party. And then I talked about how I'm feeling about it and what is it that I need. 32 people registered to show up on this call, out of which 3 showed up. One person gave a donation. One person ended up becoming a full-time team member. So to me, that's how Sajhe had begun, like just putting yourself out there. The second question is around, what do I share? Okay, I want to share something. I want to build in public, but what exactly am I doing, right? To us at Sajhe, the mental model is that you're inviting others in your world. You're not marketing, you're inviting. अपनी दुनिया दूसरों को दिखानी है और उसमें उनको बुलावा देना है। आपको दिखती कैसी है आपकी दुनिया? And I'm just going to start with examples directly. Year one, we did crowdfunding. Like Saji started because we had money from people. 800 people donated. And then we started Saji, right? पहले साल में साझे ऐसा दिख रहा था. This was our world. This was Zoom calls. This was our world. 5 students, 2 volunteers. That's how Saji was. And for us, it was, career dreams real in difficult places. So whatever we were seeing possibilities, we were seeing sapne walis. And that is what we put out there in the world. And we did raise around 30 lakhs in our first crowdfunding campaign within 4 days. And this was online and offline. And we had to stop the campaign because the money wasn't flowing and we didn't know if we'd be able to do justice to that much money. But all we had to do was just tell what is it that you are seeing. मुझे क्या दिख रहा है गांव की औरतों के बारे में, वो मुझे दिखाना है, राइट? तो मुझे वो अबला नारी नहीं दिख रही है या मुझे वो हीरोइन नहीं दिख रही है, मुझे she's a सपने वाली, just like I am a sapne wali. So we talked about that. Yeah, this is not year 2, this is year 4. This was our recent campaign that Sam had earlier mentioned about. Again, the focus was we are still seeing sapne walis. The visual has become slightly more vibrant. And this time the story of the campaign was not just about what is possible. We actually, because now it's our 4th year, and our world right now is that what could go wrong, but it is worth doing. So the whole story of the campaign was, listen, there is an idea we have. It's a bold idea. It might fail, but I think it's worth trying. Can you give us money? And the whole team showed that to the world over and over in their own ways. And we did raise around 35 lakhs online and offline. At Sajay, we do not have any templatized messages. So each person in the team raises, puts themselves out there to raise money for Sajay. Everyone is a fundraiser during crowdfunding. And the prompt is, again, तुमको जो दुनिया दिखती है वो दिखानी है, सुरभि को जो दुनिया दिखती है वो नहीं दिखानी है, साझे को जो दुनिया दिखती है वो नहीं दिखानी है, तुमको जो दुनिया दिखती है वो दिखानी है. So Rinki is one of our alumna, is also my colleague. उसको जो दुनिया दिखती है साझे की, why does she think Saje is relevant? So she wrote a whole post around her conversation with her mother, her insights from that. Muskan, another colleague, she wrote about her reflections on how her student sends her WhatsApp messages that begin with hello Didi. And every time she has a question, she starts with hello Didi. And then Muskan wrote about a series of questions over 10 months and how the change in question is telling her how much her student has grown. And now I didn't see this because I had not been teaching this year. So when I read these stories, I was inspired कि यार ये कितना सुंदर है. Like this is happening in our organization. I'm so happy that Rinki is seeing this and Muskan is seeing this, right? But it has to be what you are seeing. So please stop creating template messages within the organization and circulate them outside. It really helps bring out new things. So the question then you need to ask is, do you have awareness about what's happening in your world? And if you are aware, do you have an articulation about what's happening in your world? The choice of sharing comes much later. बहुत बार तो हमें ही नहीं पता है हमारे साथ हो क्या रहा है, तो हम ही नहीं देखना चाह रहे हैं तो हम दिखाएंगे क्या? ठीक है? And I do want to say that ChatGPT and anything that templatizes things, which social media tend to do, like trends चल रहे हैं, तो ट्रेंड चल रहे हैं तो वो तो ट्रेंड है, तो आपके अंदर जो हो रहा है वो नहीं हो रहा है, ट्रेंड को you have adopted and absorbed. ChatGPT does something similar. If you just constantly want ChatGPT to write for you, it's going to give you templatized words, it's going to give you templatized essence. So you need to, my strong recommendation would be really, really protect your inner voice. जो दिख रहा है उसको बहुत बचाना है, क्योंकि वो बहुत जरूरी है इस दुनिया के लिए. वो रिंकी की आवाज बहुत जरूरी है इस दुनिया के लिए. She can't kill that. क्योंकि अगर उसने वो खो दिया तो दुनिया ने रिंकी की आवाज खो दी, right? So yeah, the sharing choice comes much later. Observing and awareness and articulation, seeing it yourself comes much earlier. I would just mention that credibility is not built overnight. This is online or offline. Consistency is the most important thing. So it's not going to be like today you start crowdfunding campaign and you've never posted about your work at all. Just people don't know who you are, right? So consistency matters. consistency also matters. It's not that Surabhi looks really fancy online, like she looks really thoughtful and sweet online, but when you meet her, she's an asshole. That cannot cut it. So the online and offline go hand in hand in some sense, and offline is way stronger, right? Like if people cannot connect with you in the same way, or they see something very different, the credibility goes down. So just be true to yourself online or offline. Just one example, before we did the crowdfunding, I had reached out to someone who is a funder in the social sector, and I had reached out to them. He was a connect for 4 years ago that I had met him. And I gave him a pitch of Saje Sapne. And within 25 minutes, he said, "ठीक है, how much money do you want? I'll give it to you." And my reflex reaction to that was, "You're joking, right? You haven't asked me any questions." And he said, "When I had met you 4 years ago, you were still talking about gender and rural. And since 4 years, I've been seeing you talk about the same stuff. So you haven't budged, and now you're finally doing something about it. So I'm giving money to you and not to your idea." So that's how credibility gets built. 4 years. And then he was the first institution funder who had said yes to us. Question number 3, how to make my creation shareable. You're convinced you want to build in public. You are convinced what is it that you want to build in public. You just don't know how to actually create it in a way that people can connect with it. तो करे कैसे शेयर, मतलब उसको बनाए ऐसा कैसे कि दूसरे उसको भी समझ जाए. मुझे जो दिख रहा है वो मैं दूसरों को भी दिखा दूं. तो साझे में हमारा एक मंत्र है, किसी भी चीज को रोचक बनाने के लिए, किसी भी चीज को इंटरेस्टिंग बनाने के लिए, it needs to do at least one of these two things, right? या तो वो दिल छू ले, it touches your heart, या वो दिमाग खोल दे, like it just blows your mind away, or it just pokes your mind in a way, oh, that was new, I didn't think of it that way. Or it does both, right? So whatever stories you make for yourself or for outside, क्या वो दिल, या तो वो दिल छू ले, या दिमाग खोल दे, या वो दोनों खोले, right? What we end up doing often, at least on social media, what I've seen is that we hide behind big words. So instead of reaching to the heart and the head, we tend to hide behind big words. And I'm going to give examples of that. LinkedIn has a lot of posts about awards. I'm so honored to get this award. I'm so honored to be speaking at this panel discussion. This was one of the couple of awards that I have gotten, and I had posted about it. So the information, so there are 4 kinds of posts that are possible. Again, I'm not going to give you the generic tips on how to become a better writer and storyteller. You can Google it and you're going to find things like read better, write better, right? What I am telling you is that as I'm reflecting back, this was not my strategy when I do things. This session has made me reflect. So this is me trying to break it down, that why, let's say, our post about Sajay work with people. Like, why do people remember what we say? Why do people come and tell us, "Oh my God, that newsletter you wrote, I resonated with it so much." Like, what is it that clicks? So it's a reflection. It's not a strategy. I have seen there are 4 kinds of posts, right? There are informational posts. There is an insight post. There is an inner world post. Hold on. Okay. Inner world post, like andar kya ho raha hai? And then there is a bigger picture post. Like, how is this experience connected to interconnectedness, right? Like to the bigger picture of the world, bigger than you, basically. तो जानकारी क्या मिली, उससे तुमने क्या जाना, है ना? और उसके जज्बात तुम्हारे अंदर क्या हैं, और ये किस किस चीज से जुड़ा हुआ है. तो हम ना ये, I'm going to run through couple of examples, just breaking this down. ठीक है? So what do we say? Information is, I'm so honored to receive this award. What does this word even mean? Honored. We say this so often. I'm so honored to talk to you. What does it even mean viscerally? Honored. कि अच्छा मुझे honored महसूस हुआ. हम दोस्तों को कभी नहीं बोलते हैं. I'm so honored that I'm your friend. Because दोस्तों के साथ there is simplicity. There is ease. So I honestly never have understood what is this meaning of I am honored. So this is an information post. Insight is, this award is the result of many people's work. So it's not me, it's my team which has deserved this award. So this is the insight you're sharing to the world. Inner world, and this is where I often play. Like, these are the 2 areas where I often play in my social media. And to myself as well, that what is actually this award making me feel right now? And so to me, sometimes it takes very long. Like I received both the awards like last year, and I finally posted about them like 7, 8 months later because I just couldn't understand my feelings about these awards. And to me, finally, one of the big feelings that came up that that I think I have taken more from my colleges than I have given back. And two, I genuinely feel very held. कि यार ये college अभी भी ध्यान रख रहा है मेरा. How nice is that? And then to me, the interconnectedness beyond Surabhi, what does this mean? The question is, how do you build organizations which actually make their alumni feel that they're held, especially after they have left, right? So increasing the level of richness in stories that you tell yourself just create a better invitation for the world to come inside. This was another post where I was talking about how brothers are big barriers for young women's growth, right? So information is just men suck. Everyone knows that many places women are stopped because of men's whatever control. Insight is for us that it's not the parents, it's the brothers who actually stop women in the family. Inner world is that, okay, I wonder what would it be like when men break the equation of patriarchy and then set themselves free. So now this is way richer than just discarding and simplifying and saying, yaar, ye to aise hi hain. This is what they do. All of a sudden, there is a different level of conversation happening. And then interconnectedness, how is this related to the big picture? The big picture is that patriarchy is doing a lot of harm to men too. And the cycle is very sad. You've asked them to be the saviors in the house. So they are going to be the saviors in the house, and they are going to, understand and save in the way they understand what that honor safety is, right? Just keep digging deeper. If you really want to have richer stories, forget the world for yourself. यहां तक मत रुको, level तक मत रुको. जानकारी is cheap in this world. Can you ask yourself कि अच्छा इससे हो क्या रहा है मेरे अंदर, right? This was an article I had written on women at leisure for Vogue, and this article had resonated with a lot of people. Again, the information was simple. That when I talked to one of my mother's friends, she had said she's such a goofy person. To me, the insight was that I don't remember my mother being goofy. I don't remember her resting and chilling and having fun. And then that went into an inner inquiry. What does that make me feel? It makes me feel that what a loss. What a loss that I don't know the person who gave birth to me. I know my mother as a mother, not as a person. And this inner feeling was so big. Like it took me a lot of time to carry this in a way which felt, okay, I can be productive about this, or I can hold this, because this was weighing me down in a big way, that I felt so much guilt and not grief. I felt so much guilt that I don't know who my mother is. And then that, because it was such a big feeling, because it was such a big deal inside, it kept making me think more and read more and connect many dots. And it eventually led to this beautiful big project, which is now talking about bigger things. That if labor is a feminist issue, then leisure is a feminist issue. And leisure sets us free. So just the deeper you go within, the better stories you're going to tell yourself, and you can choose to tell them to the world. And then the last one I'm going to connect. I do a lot of hand-drawn data visualization. So this is another set of stories that I do share with world sometimes. This was about phone usage and internet usage, actually. So the information is being offline is good. All of us know that. So me doing that data visualization is not a big deal. Yes, offline is good. I didn't have to do that data visualization for that. Insight is, nothing. I'm the CEO and founder of an organization. Nothing really breaks apart when I'm offline. Nothing. No family member has died. No team member has done something else. Everything stays fine if I don't touch my phone for 4 hours. And that was an insight for me. Inner world for me, and this was a big learning that came from that data, was that I realized that because I have access to internet, on hard days, on big feelings days, I cannot sit still with my feelings. I have to go online and check something. And that was like a big sort of a revelation about myself, because I used to gloat about कि हाँ हाँ मैं तो मेरी feelings के touch में हूँ. But actually, I was not, because when I started drawing the data, I realized that you don't want to sit with your bad feelings or big, heavy feelings, right? Then you go on to the interconnectedness beyond Surabhi. Then you can talk about the neuroscience of it. You can talk about the sociology of it, right? And that's where it gets very, very interesting for yourself. And if you choose to share, for the world. I do want to mention one example here. I was telling to my colleague, Ishani, who has helped me put together the visuals of this presentation, that information is I like pakoda. I love chai pakoda. Insight is, यार चाय पकौड़ा बारिश में कितना अच्छा लगता है, और मुझे तो बहुत ही अच्छा लगता है. Inner world is, when I was young, we had scarcity of money. So every time I see chai pakoda, I think of abundance. Because chai pakoda used to be a treat. So chai pakoda reminds me of abundance. That's how I feel inside. Interconnectedness, again, could be, I wonder how early childhood experiences set people for their lifetimes of behavior. I wonder, when we talk about terrorists and bad people, what must have happened in their childhood? So pakoda can take you to that level of analysis if you're ready for it and if you're ready to go deeper. I'm just going to go to the last question, is around, you're convinced you have to do it. You have tried doing it, and yet you just cannot share things in public. You cannot stand up for yourself. You cannot stand up for someone else at work. हो ही नहीं रहा है, मतलब हो ही नहीं रहा है. I think the last mantra that I'll give you is that परेशानी को प्रश्न बना दो, right? Reframe your problems as questions, right? So if you're saying, I don't have a story, Surabhi, you have a story. That's why you can write. I don't have a story. One, that's a lie. Your brain is a story making machine. It's a meaning making machine. Every single person has a story all the time. The story that you don't have a story is the story, right? Just reframe it as a question. Why do I not have a story? Like उसको सवाल की तरह पूछो, और sincere सवाल की तरह, like actually indulge in it. Why do I not have any story? And what makes a story? And then go deeper in this. And now this is your world, right? So you have to invite the world to this world. कि अच्छा देखो, मेरे पास कहानी नहीं है, और मुझे पता भी नहीं है कहानी होती क्या है, पर मैं सीख रही हूँ. और क्योंकि मैं सीख रही हूँ, तो मैं आपको भी बता देती हूँ कि मुझे ये दिख रहा है, right? So now you have a new reality that you're inviting your world in. So the mantra number 2 comes in, right? Like invite people in your world, and this is your world right now. The other is, मुझे थोड़ी ना कोई भाव देगा. आप तो IIT से पढ़ के आई हो ना, आपको भाव मिलता है, मुझे नहीं कोई भाव देगा, मुझे क्या आता है, राइट? सो देन आस्क अ क्वेश्चन, अच्छा आखिर क्यों तुमको कोई भाव नहीं देगा? और बहुत अच्छे से सिंसियरली उसको सवाल की तरह पूछना है. डोंट श्रग इट ऑफ, नहीं आता है, आस्क ना, हाँ तुमको क्यों नहीं भाव मिलता है यार? सबको भाव मिलता है, तुमको क्यों नहीं मिलता है? ब्रेक इट डाउन, राइट? एंड किस तरीके का भाव इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर यू? किसका भाव चाहिए तुमको, है ना? तो and then this is your new world. So you're showing this to the world. So, I mean, I can stop here, but basically reframe your problems as questions, and then questions, that quest becomes your new world. And your job then is to invite the world and show them what you're seeing in that quest. I'm just going to stop. I would mention that the 2 important things that I did not touch at all during this is ethics of building in public, and this is something very important, and the repercussions of building in public, all the good, bad, ugly that comes with building things in public, and how do you cope with it. All I'm saying is that focus your energy on that quest. That ये जो सवाल हैं, बहुत प्यारे सवाल हैं, and only you can answer them. Only you can uniquely pursue them and find your data and answer them. And then if you like, you can share that with your community, your public, right? But I would talk about actually framing them as question, and then observing yourself on a regular basis. I think, again, I'm obsessed with that collection of data and observing self. You don't have to be that obsessive, but you can observe that, okay, what is this discomfort trying to tell me?
एक और सवाल है सुरभि. Building in public means having a lot of conviction about what you are building. However, sometimes the very idea you start out with changes, and this could affect your credibility. How do you recommend handling this?
Again, I think inviting other people in your world. I think indecisiveness doesn't necessarily change your credibility. Like, everyone understand life is messy. Like nobody is expecting that once Surabhi has started Saji Sapne, she will never close it or she will never make a mistake. She's going to be this amazing CEO. That's just not possible. That's not real. And I think people understand messiness. The question is, I think indecisiveness or change of plans don't break credibility. You not owning that up or you pretending that something else is going on, that breaks the credibility. So I think for me, is the consistency for me is that I'm going to show what I'm seeing, and what I'm seeing can keep changing. And I'm going to keep changing. And I hope I keep changing. So my narrative is going to keep changing, right? Um, so yeah, and you're right that building something in public does require conviction. But the fact that your conviction is also going to shake as and when you keep growing in your journey. So I think the commitment is to the integrity of the process, not on what outcomes happen. If you fail, you fail. And then you talk about that, okay, these are the 5 things I tried. This is why it didn't work. And this is where I'm at now. But yeah, I don't think indecisiveness or pivoting breaks credibility. Not owning it up definitely does.
Do you deal with comments that may be sexist or misogynist and continue to sustain your energy?
It's been like over the years, I think the toolkit has expanded. And of course, it began with language of understanding self. मतलब feminism पहली बार when I found out कि feminism भी एक चीज है, when I was 23 I found out कि अच्छा feminism, some other women have gotten angry on my behalf before me, right? And have thought about this. I'm not the first one to think about why does this feel off all the time, you know. It began with language. It continued on to anger, a lot of anger. Um, and I think where I'm at right now is that I think there was a lot of politics of resistance that I dealt with for a very long period. And I think where I'm at the moment is politics of creation. I think we need to expand our toolkit of our feminist world. You know, I think one way is that we keep pushing back to the patriarchy. Whenever patriarchy pokes you, you react. Right? That's one way. And it's needed. It's very, very much needed. But that's not the only way. And that shouldn't be the only tool we have available. So to me, from last few years, the question is that if I was not being poked by patriarchy, what would I be doing? And the example I feel for this is that patriarchy ने बोला कि सड़क safe नहीं औरतों के लिए. Don't go out in the dark. It's not safe for you. So now we started fighting back and saying, no, Sadak is safe. Now we're going to do midnight march. Sadak is safe, right? So that was a one level of answer. And it's needed. It's a valuable answer. But to me, the answer is कि अच्छा patriarchy ने बोला ही नहीं होता मुझे. और if I didn't even care patriarchy मेरे से क्या बोल रही है कि सड़क safe नहीं है, तो मैं सड़क पे क्या करती? Would I be taking strolls at 11? Would I be just exploring new paths? What exactly would I be doing if I was not being poked by patriarchy? And to me, that politics of creation at the moment is so important. Like that's where I am at right now in my feminist politics. So half of the time I feel the misogynist and sexist comments just sound very stupid to me and sound very unoriginal and boring, that they just half of the time I feel I don't have to even dignify them with my response and attention, right? And sometimes they just get to me. And then, आओ बहन चाय पे बैठे. And I have a lot of behne and, some male friends with whom I went and talk and fight. And I also fight sometimes head on. But yeah, I think the frequency has reduced. Thankfully, the politics of creation has taken over in a big way for me. And I know everyone evolves with that on their own.
One of the things that holds me back from putting myself out there is the worry that I'm not sharing or speaking up about all the things that I should. Example, political issues that need to be voiced about. So how do you deal with that quandary?
I mean, I would ask two follow-up questions. Is sharing everything a must? And is that like a true thing that you need to do? Like, is that true? Is that kind expectation? Is that a true expectation? Is that a kind expectation, right? Like, you can't talk about everything. You can't talk about everything all the time. That's just the fact of life. So to me, again, I'm going to change that question, reframe that problem into a question. Why do you feel the need of talking about everything? Like, where is that pressure coming from? And then genuinely indulge in those questions. मतलब बहुत curiosity के साथ be a scientist and dissect that. कि अंदर से कहाँ से वो गुड़गुड़ आ रही है कि मैंने देखो पॉलिटिकली गाजा के बारे में तो बात नहीं किया पर अपने अवार्ड के बारे में बात किया. तो that's your reality. Frame it as a question. the first answer is going to be that I feel guilty. Don't stop there. Go deeper. What is that guilt trying to tell you? Where did this guilt originate from? Is it just social media pressure that everyone is talking, like everyone in my follow list is talking about it? The algorithm is telling me everyone is talking about it. Then the follow-up question is, how much am I driven by the algorithm? What do I need to do for 5 days that can tell me my inner voice right now? Will be I'm going to sit in my corner and just journal. It necessarily doesn't have to be on LinkedIn, right? Or in your office. You get to choose. It has to be your informed choice. But for that informed choice to happen, you need to go deeper. Don't stop at the first superficial reactive answer that you get. And I think from there, you keep moving, right? But yeah, you're not chat GPT. You can't talk about everything. You are a person, you know.
Question. Hi, Survi. Great session. Question related to the ethics around sharing the story in public. How do we ensure that we avoid our bias, limited understanding while sharing the story in public?
Yeah. No, I think that's an important one. And again, by public, it's not just LinkedIn, okay? So imagine you're in a workplace and you're making a case for yourself, or you're making a case for something you care about, right? Like there should be more snacks in the office, right? That's your agenda, right? Like you're putting yourself out there and making something work. I think to me, like I keep thinking, so women at leisure, for example, I share a lot of women's stories, and these are all intimate, light, relaxing moments, right? Like someone is just taking a nap and there is a photograph of her going in a very big public space. To me, the two things that definitely are on top is consent and context, right? Know the context of that person really well, as much as you can, before putting it out there. So if it's a context of a project, right? Like let's say you're putting yourself out there that, hey, I just did this project really well. Make sure you know the context of that project, right? Second is, actually there should be three and four. It's consent, context, credit, and compensation. Right. So first is consent. Like just take the consent of the person whose story you're sharing or whose story you're building on, right? For example, in social sector, we work with people very closely and we are sharing people's stories, है ना? तो जैसे I work with a lot of young women from Dalit Bahujan communities, especially communities जहाँ पे it's a very low income community, let's say, in villages. For us, the one rule around consent and context is very clear that if we are writing a story about Sapne Wali, when she reads this story, would she feel proud or would she not want to be associated with it, right? When her parents and her family members read the story, would they want to not associate from it? And that's a very important marker कि जब वो पढ़ेगी, even this presentation when I was making, and I was thinking जब मेरी लड़कियां ये presentation देखेंगी, would they want to be part of this or would they want to be out of it, right? Would they be disconnected from it? And that's a very important marker. So consent and context are very key. And then fair crediting. I think we often forget that, especially when we're doing things in online space. Because online space, everything is so public that you forget that there is a person who made this thing. So we just pick it up and use it for our own gain without crediting, right? So fair crediting. Do not forget, especially in offices, do not forget all the people that helped you put together a project. That makes me bring to the crediting for this presentation. Ishani helped me with all the illustrations and all the beauty that you see here. Soumya and Ritu and Sally helped me with, putting together this session. And, all the Saji team has helped me put together the insights, right? So fair crediting. And finally is compensation, that if you're using stories for gains that actually get you ahead either in money or fame, make sure compensating the people that you're crediting. Okay. So there's a few ethics that come to my mind immediately. And yeah, own it up. Like you're gonna make mistakes. Just don't be a don't be an arrogant person. Just own it up. Like be real to yourself and to others.
या थैंक यू सुरभि। ये ना मुझे एक इंसिडेंट के बारे में याद दिला रहा है। जब एक सेशन ले रहे थे हम एंड वहां पे पूछा गया था, क्योंकि हम पॉडकास्ट पे मतलब स्टोरीज डालते हैं, राइट, क्वियर डिसेबल्ड पीपल लोगों के। तो आई थिंक 1 साल हो गया इस बात को, 1 डेढ़ साल। बट हमने ऐसे ही जब एक एपिसोड बन रहा था एंड देन देवर की यहाँ पे ना स्टैमरिंग का एक पार्ट है, सो शुड वी कट इट, बट स्टैमरिंग इज ऑल्सो अ फॉर्म ऑफ न्यूरोडाइवर्जेंस एंड इज लिव्ड रियलिटी ऑफ मेनी पीपल विच ऑल्सो ब्रिंग्स us shame when we end up stammering in situations like how we have to hide it. एंड मुझे वो याद भी नहीं था, बट 1-1.5 साल बाद उन्होंने मुझे याद दिलाया कि जब तुमने ये बोला था ना कि ये नॉर्मल है, देन आई फेल्ट वेरी एम्पावर्ड. सो आपने जो बोला ना, कंसेंट, कॉन्टेक्स्ट, क्रेडिट,
Yeah.
power dynamics behind everything, so important.
Yeah, I would say around crediting, especially for my work, at least I've seen that people take up so much of my work and do not credit. And part of you feels really good that, oh, wow, the point was to put the idea out there and let them credit, whatever. Now, put the idea out there and let it grow. Like, you don't want to be a gatekeeper, right? Like, so internally you're saying, nahi, nahi, acha hai, bahar ja raha hai, jiska bhala ho raha hai, hone do. But the other part of it is, what Sarah Ahmed said, like citation is feminist memory.
Yes.
Like, this is how you erase women's labor. You don't credit them. And so, don't do that to each other, especially do not let other people do that to you, because citation is feminist memory. That's how we grow.